Reggae's darkest secrets finally exposed. From Bob Marley's CIA murder plot to Vybz Kartel's prison hit list, these artists didn't just die, they were silenced. Stick around. The final 60 seconds reveal which government agencies were really behind these murders. You'll never listen to their music the same way again. Bob Marley's life and death remain shrouded in a mist of suspicion, a fog so thick that even decades later it refuses to clear. His rise to fame was meteoric. In 1975, the live version of No Woman, No Cry catapulted him beyond the Caribbean into the veins of global consciousness. Then came Rastaman Vibration, his powerful march into the U.S. Billboard soul charts. But while Marley sang of redemption, forces unseen lay prey. On a chilling night, December 3rd, 1976, just before he was set to perform at Smile, Jamaica, a concert meant to calm a nation on the brink of civil war. Bullets erupted through a sanctuary at 56 Hope Road. Rita Marley, his wife, was fired in the head. Bob Marley himself bore wounds in his chest and arm. Don Taylor, his manager, was riddled with bullets. Official lips murmured of political tensions, but hushed voices suggested darker conspiracies. Rumors snaked from Kingston's alleys to Washington's corridors. Whispers of CIA involvement. A clandestine operation to silence a voice too powerful, too unyielding. Timothy White, a respected author, revealed tales of armed men perhaps acting under the orders of American agencies, fed by drugs and weapons. Even Marley's untimely death years later from a rare melanoma, a disease that whispered of poison and sabotage, refused to silence the persistent question: was Bob Marley a victim, not fate, but design? Next on our list is Peter Tosh. Peter Tosh, a voice ablaze against oppression, dared to cry out against governments and police brutality with ferocity few could match. As a founding member of the Wailers, he etched his name into reggae's bones before striking out on a solo path sharpened with anger and truth. But his end, too, bore the marks of betrayal and mystery. On September 11, 1987, Peter Tosh's life was ripped away in his Kingston home, bullets tearing through flesh and silence alike. The man behind the fire weapon was Dennis Lobben, someone Tosh had once helped. The story fed to the public was one of robbery gone wrong, of debts unpaid. Yet, the streets of Kingston buzz with different tales, of simmering rivalries over Bob Marley's musical legacy, of whispered accusations against Rita Marley, and of powerful enemies lurking in the shadows who found Tosh's rebellious heart too dangerous to tolerate. His stance against apartheid, his cries for the legalization of herb, and his fearless denunciations of oppression had painted a target on his back far bigger than his homeland. Was his life taking a random act of violence, or the cold calculation of unseen puppeteers? Next on our list is Buju Banton. Buju Banton's saga unfurled with the stench of betrayal. The voice behind anthems that echoed from Trenchtown to Tokyo found himself ensnared in a trap so sinister it blurred the lines between entrapment and guilt. In a Miami warehouse, surveillance cameras captured Buju tasting illegal substance, surrounded by law enforcement's hidden eyes. The evidence seemed insurmountable: audio, video, the damning testimony of Alex Johnson, a man who Buju met by chance on a transatlantic flight, and who just happened to be a veteran DEA informant. As his trial collapsed into a mistrial and then into conviction, many asked, had Buju been ensnared by a system eager to destroy a rebellious voice, or had he, drunk on bravado and arrogance, walked willingly into the trap? The court sentenced him to 10 years, but the streets hummed a different verdict. A victim, not a villain. A lion caught in a hunter's snare woven from lies and greed. Next on our list is Vybz Kartel. Vybz Kartel's name became legend, not just for his hypnotic rhythms, but for the shadows that clung to him like a second skin. When the gavel fell in 2014, sealing his fate for the life-taking of Clive Williams, the story the world saw was one of violence and gangsterism. Yet, beneath the official narrative, darker tales brewed. A disillusioned voice known only as Sir P, cloaked in the anonymity of the internet, unfurled allegations that cast Kartel not just as a musician, but as the invisible hand behind street warfare. The most jarring accusation, that from behind prison bars, Vybz Kartel orchestrated a plot to snuff out his former protege, Popcaan. Fueled by jealousy over Pop Kane's rising star and his alliances with international titans like Drake, Kartel's envy, it was said, turned murderous. Only a fortunate police intervention, according to these whispers, spared Popcorn from a death that would have stained Hellshire's streets with yet another martyr's blood. Official courtrooms delivered a sentence. The streets murmur of unfinished vendettas and wars without end. Next on our list is Don Drummond. Don Drummond, the trombone prodigy who helped birth ska, lived a life that danced on the razor's edge of genius and madness. His hands, so deft in music, found tragedy when his lover Anita Moffwood was discovered dead, pierced through the heart. Declared criminally insane, Don Drummond was consigned to Bellevue Asylum, a place as infamous for its brutality as for its supposed healing. For years later, Don was dead. The government claimed natural causes. The people whispered murder. Starved, drugged, forgotten. The genius who could summon entire symphonies from the bell of his horn was silenced. Heather Augustin's exhaustive research peeled away the lies to reveal the brutal truth. Don Drummond was likely a victim of a medical system that fed poison in the name of therapy. His death not an accident, but the culmination of neglect, fear, and societal indifference to mental illness. Next on our list is Ninja Man. Ninja Man's name stirred equal parts reverence and fear. A titan of dancehall whose aggressive style mirrored the violence simmering in Jamaica's ghettos. When he and his son were hauled into court over the life-taking of Ricardo Johnson, many saw it as the inevitable consequence of a life lived on the edge. But as the trial stuttered and staggered under repeated delays, Ninja Man played a desperate card. Chest pains, a hospital rush, murmurs of a heart attack. Sympathy flooded in, but so did cynicism. Was this the last act of a desperate man, feigning fragility to delay judgment? The trial pressed on. The verdict was guilty, and Ninja Man was led away in chains, his legend tarnished but unbowed. Next on our list is Lee Scratch Perry. Lee Scratch Perry's madness was as famous as his music, a symphony of chaos that somehow birthed some of reggae's most immortal sounds. The Black Ark Studio, his sacred cathedral of sonic alchemy, burned to ash, set aflame by Perry himself, or so he claimed, in an act of spiritual cleansing, as his eccentricities multiplied. Painting on walls, burning microphones, defecating in champagne glasses. The world watched, fascinated and horrified. Was he a prophet or a madman? A genius tuned to frequencies others could not hear, or a broken vessel spilling madness onto the world? Rolling Stone dubbed him reggae's mad scientist. But to Perry, even his most bizarre rituals were sacraments in the chaotic church of his own creation. Next on our list is Lucky Dube. Lucky Dube's death shook South Africa to its core, a senseless act of violence that ripped the voice of peace from a country still bleeding from its wounds. Carjackers, the police said, a random, tragic mistake. Yet testimony in court hinted at another layer, that the armed men mistook Dube for a Nigerian, and that beneath the surface, xenophobic tensions had played a deadly hand. In a nation still grappling with the ghost of apartheid, the idea that fear and hatred of outsiders could strike down one of its own beloved sons was a wound that festered long after the trial ended and the armed men were locked away. Next on our list is Panhead. Panhead's life-taking came swift and brutal. A rising star in the dancehall galaxy, his voice commanded respect. His tracks dominated the airwaves. But in the blood-stained streets of Spanish Town, his light was snuffed out by armed men who, official reports claimed, sought only money. Few believed it. Panhead's death bore the unmistakable marks of an execution. Calculated, deliberate, merciless. His contemporaries mourned in music, their tributes painting a picture of a man whose rise threatened others and whose death was more than mere misfortune. Next on our list is Smiley Culture. Smiley Culture's death in the heart of England ignited a firestorm. The official tale was of a self-inflicted wound during a police raid. His family, his fans, the black community, none of them bought it. How could a man surrounded by trained officers manage to pierce himself fatally in the chest? How could a post-mortem conclude self-life-taking, while the officers refused interviews, shielded behind procedural walls? Smiley's death became a symbol, a flashpoint in a society grappling with the weight of institutional racism. When riots later tore through London, researchers cited his death as one of the sparks that lit the fire. The worlds these legends inhabited were brutal and unforgiving. Behind their songs of love, rebellion, and redemption were stories soaked in betrayal, blood, and whispered conspiracies. These were not merely musicians. They were warriors, prophets, victims, and martyrs. Their legacies endure, but so do the shadows, long and dark, stretching across the decades, carrying with them the eternal question: how much truth lies buried with the dead? Do you believe Bob Marley's death was natural or orchestrated? Was Peter Tosh a victim of random violence or targeted elimination? Did Buju Banton fall into a trap, or was he pushed? Which of these stories shocked you the most? Drop your truth in the comments. And if you want more stories the industry tries to bury, subscribe and stay tuned. The next revelation might be even darker.